It isn't enough to think about freedom. One must be free. In order to be free, one must be able to make distinctions. To be able to make distinctions, one must be able to observe. The eye observes everything and conveys it all to the brain, to the senses. The eye plops it all down in front of them and says, take your pick, make a choice. When I began to write poetry, I thought that I was doing something quite important, expressing my thoughts and emotions. Later on, I realized that no one cared. Who would ever be in need of your neuroses, phobias, romantic angst, and political, patriotic, or humanitarian fits of fancy? When you take this away, nothing remains underneath. Or, what remains is that which is visible, genuine, that which is visible to all. I saw a girl with dark eyebrows at the Rialto Bridge, her thick hair flowing like a river in the night, and rubies on her ears. Her eyes black, suns black, eternally glowing like suns. A light, flower print shawl twisted round her waist. The flame in her eyes struck my gaze, and I lowered my head. She smiled a smile of intrigue and timeless womanhood. The only genuine thing in this famous poem by Avedick Isahagyan is the first two lines. I saw a girl with dark eyebrows at the Rialto Bridge. If we look at this as a photograph, as a visual fact, what remains is the girl with dark eyebrows under the Rialto Bridge, or perhaps the ruby earrings. Also, the flower print shawl, if it is part of the girl's attire and not a figment of the author's imagination. The desire to live forever hinders one from being free. You wrote, painted, 1, 2, beginning, middle, end, and the work is ready. In essence, the real aim is to complete, to terminate the movement, nothing more. We terminate movement. Oh, how we terminate movement. Because movement rules out death, and consequently, it rules out eternal life. They ask me, why don't you publish a book? I tell them, do you remember Pushkin's famous poem? I have erected a monument to myself, not built by hands. Once, I gave a very famous artist, who is now dead, God rest his soul, my first book as a gift. He told me, congratulations. Opened the drawer, tossed the book inside, and closed the drawer. My book wound up in the graveyard. Full stop. It all ended. My last hope of attaining eternal life was crushed to pieces. One must move in order not to die. One must be subsumed in fact, in what's real, or else start off from fact, or starting from fact, direct oneself towards fact. Once I accidentally dropped my ink cartridge into a cup of water. The ink started to float on the surface. The effect resembled those values which we take great pride in. We have this and that. We have Naregatsi, we have Tumanyan, Deryan, and Charents. All continue to float on the surface. Below is just water. I removed the cartridge, pricked a hole in it, and let the ink drop in the water. Movement was born, an exquisite picture unfolding before my eyes. Then, I did the same with another colored ink, then another. Everything changed. There was change. One must move to stave off death. One must be subsumed in fact. The most powerful fact is the marketplace, and it is based on the idea of movement, to give and take, or the opposite, take and give. The poet, Marine Bedrosyan, once observed that if you are neither a buyer nor a seller, the market resembles a poem. I find this notion very pleasing. This is correct, but so is the opposite. The market resembles a poem if you are both a buyer and seller. This is Git, a well-known weekly paper filled only with classified ads. It is a market for people buying things and selling things. No one would ever think to look for poetry within its pages, but it contains the same words and meanings with which poetry is written. All it takes is a bit of rearrangement and minor intervention, shuffling of text, final composition, and voila, poetry. More important than expressing emotion is to draw, attract attention. I now understand that I did just that 25 or 26 years ago. When I entered college, they took us to work in a canning factory. It was the first time I was away from home for so long. My mother told me to make sure to write home. I told her yes, so I left and didn't have a clue what to write. I started to think, but all I could come up with was a bunch of immature rubbish. A day or two had passed, and I said to myself that they'd get worried at home. Out of the blue, I noticed that the walls of the factory were plastered with Soviet slogans, so I began to copy them. The party's plan, plan of the people, and similar stuff. I can't remember them all. I copied them down and sent them home. My mind was at peace. All I tried to do was to attract some attention. If I leave some signs behind of what I've done, and if I don't lose my sense of humor, then everything is normal, and thus I'm alive and well. I am selling soap bubbles in good condition. One must work on creating attention, on generating attention. Isn't that the reason why they say, "Can I have your attention, please?" before saying anything important? They call out attention, attention. They don't call out consciousness, consciousness, or sensibility, sensibility. The books remain in drawers, grow dusty and turn yellow, only because a road between books and consciousness and books and sensibility hasn't been opened. It's that road that I think about. I am selling real estate in the land of paradise with a view of Ararat. I am selling my voice, a baritone, slightly hoarse. I am selling a barricade, two-sided. I am selling a wheel of fortune, good year-round. One day, I took these lines to a newspaper office and asked that they be published. A staffer at the paper starts to read. I am selling stereotypes, domestic make and well preserved. He tells me, "But this isn't an advert." I respond, of course it isn't an advert, it's poetry. He then says, don't you know that we only run advertisements, not poems? I tell him that I'll pay as if they were adverts. The newspaper employee tells me, you'll have to take it up with the editor. I understand that they are afraid to plunge their readers into confusion. They believe that a huge distance between advertisements and poems must be preserved. A great, huge distance. Now, if someone were to put on this shirt and walk around on the street outside, people spotting it wouldn't know if it was an advertisement or what. Perhaps they wouldn't realize that the words, I am selling a pang of remorse, wholesale, might just be poetry. But this isn't what's important. What's important is the creation of movement. Selling is inherent movement, but slightly different from other movement. See here, this policeman is moving, right? But his movement necessitates compulsion. Stop, let the government pass. Let it pass. I have no objections. That is what government is for, to pass. Right? Now what was I saying? Oh yeah. Selling is an action that brings about freedom. You sell to liberate yourself of certain goods. The buyer takes possession of the goods to consume them, and by consuming them is liberated. My poetry is the bridge between the two, the transmitter between buyer and seller. When I am asked who has had the greatest influence on me as a poet, I respond, Soviet-era anecdotes. I'm not joking. The only thing available back then to rouse those brains petrified by Soviet-era ideologies was the anecdote. Today, the anecdote remains the primary means of independent expression. If you want to say something that is correct, use a bit of anecdotal humor to get the message across. People were calling in to Armenian public radio and asking, how can you pick out an Armenian in a crowd of people? The answer? Just wait 5 minutes and the Armenian will stand out in the crowd. In other words, he'll draw attention to himself. Thus, drawing attention to oneself is a national trait that must be developed. Today, thank God, there are many ways to attract attention. Puppets, flyers, t-shirts, telephone ring chimes, video clips. From the walls of the city to the internet, the surrounding environment is open to infiltration. If all this is used for commercial purposes, then it can also be used in the service of poetry. Why not? Let it serve and serve. Let the environment change. I am selling a trench, has been privatized. I am selling a serious facial expression made from Italian leather. I am selling property in a minefield. I am selling an hourglass sand clock. Sand may be purchased separately. I am selling a spider's web. 20 by 20 centimeters, never used. I am selling an open door, no middleman. I am selling a fist belonging to the pan-national movement. Large quantity discounts apply. I am selling a mother pig. Can be exchanged for a cell phone. I am selling a wooden horse, Trojan lounge included. I am selling a Van Cat. Includes remote control. I am selling a wooden magic wand. Minimum order 10 cubic meters. You know what's best in all this? Copyrights, schmoppity rights. Such things don't exist. Let anyone sell anything they want. Let anyone buy anything they want. Let anyone write anything they want, wherever they may be. It's not like this person is a member of the Armenian Writers Union and the other some wannabe who thinks he can write. It is freedom. It is liberty, equality, and fraternity.